Hello everyone, I'm Feynman. Today I'm hoping to learn about a fascinating new concept in AI architecture called ChronoLadders. I've invited Aristotle to help explain these concepts to me.
I'm happy to be here, Feynman. I'm Aristotle, and I've been studying some intriguing ideas about how AI can better handle time and context. The core concept is this: ChronoLadder architecture, which proposes a way to manage information across different temporal scales. I'll try to explain it in simple terms.
That sounds complex already. I've heard the term world model used a lot in AI, and it seems like this ChronoLadder idea relates to that. Could you start by explaining what a world model is in this context and why the current approaches might be insufficient?
That's a great starting point, Feynman. The author suggests that world model is an overloaded term. If it means simulating pixels or predicting video, they're not convinced that's the main bottleneck. However, if it means a persistent latent state that encodes what's true and what causes what, then a memory-first ladder like ChronoLadders could be seen as an implicit world model.
So, it's less about predicting the exact next frame of a video and more about understanding the underlying rules and persistent truths of a situation. And this ChronoLadder system is designed to capture that persistent understanding over time.
Exactly. The core claim of ChronoLadders is that time has different half-lives. Some information is fleeting, while other information is more stable. The system aims to have mechanisms for handling context across these different durations, keeping inference informed and coherent. It structures this into different rungs.
Rungs? That sounds like a ladder. Could you describe what these different rungs represent and how they handle information at different speeds?
Yes, it's quite a fitting analogy. The lowest rung, R0, is for ephemeral things like local plans or UI state, things that change very rapidly, every inference. Then you have R1 to R3, which are semantic horizons. These represent equivalence classes over histories. R1 is for microepisode causal traces, like I did X to reach Y. R2 is for task phase states like a battle loop in a game. And R3 is for session-level schemas or rules, like doors are always 2 tiles away.
I'm trying to visualize this. So R0 is like the immediate scratch pad. R1 is short-term cause and effect. R2 is the current phase of a task. And R3 is like long-term learned rules. And these higher rungs are more stable and don't update constantly?
Precisely. The author emphasizes that updates to these higher horizons are expensive and triggered only by significant surprises or changes in the underlying regime, not just by surface-level token changes. Mechanically, each rung is a latent bank with its own cadence, and writes are surprise-gated. Lower rungs emit sparse events upward, like a goal shift or contradiction, so salient changes can bubble up without making the slower horizons twitchy or leaving temporal gaps.
That makes sense. It's like having different levels of memory or awareness. The system doesn't need to reevaluate everything from scratch every time. It can carry intent and constraints across calls using these latents. But what is each rung actually learning? You mentioned R1 is short causal chains, R2 is phase invariance, and R3 is discovered rules. Is that the essence of it?
That's the author's interpretation. Yes, they describe it as learning causal structure, a world model, but factored by temporal relevance rather than explicit rollouts. The challenge, they note, is training the model to actually use this structure. It needs to reward stability, penalize gratuitous updates, and avoid shallow shortcuts where the model just rereads tokens instead of using its learned structure.
That's a crucial point. If the core AI can just solve tasks by rereading tokens, then this whole ladder structure becomes mere decoration. So the training has to force the model to rely on these stable, temporally relevant latents. This leads me to a key question. Does this horizon-separated, surprise-gated latent state already count as a useful form of a world model? Or do you reserve that term only for explicit predictive simulation?
That's the very question the author poses. They seem to lean towards it being a useful form of a world model, especially if it captures persistent causal structure and intent. It's not just learning the outside world, but also the agent's internal context and relevant history. This is in contrast to current stateless models that can drift, have meaning squashed to the token level, are easily prompt-hacked, and are essentially amnesiac, dropping everything except explicit tokens.
I see. So current models are like a game of telephone, where meaning degrades over time because they lack this persistent, structured memory. This ChronoLadder idea, with its different temporal scales and surprise-gated updates, acts like a learned filter bank for meaning over time. It seems like different kinds of meaning are indeed invariant across certain horizons.
That's a very insightful way to put it, Feynman. The author strongly suspects that different kinds of meaning are invariant per certain horizons. If something like this ChronoLadder works, looking at the rungs would reveal what's being learned. Perhaps it's closer to state control or a more robust form of internal context management.
So, to summarize, ChronoLadders propose a layered memory system where different rungs capture information at different temporal scales, from ephemeral scratch pads to stable, long-term rules. Updates are gated by surprise, preventing constant reevaluation and allowing the AI to maintain coherent intent and understanding over time, acting as a more robust form of world model by encoding causal structure and temporal relevance.
That's an excellent summary, Feynman. You've grasped the core idea of how ChronoLadders aim to provide a more stable and context-aware foundation for AI, moving beyond the limitations of current stateless models. It's a fascinating thought experiment with the potential for significant impact.